You are tuned into the Power Chord Hour right here on 107.9 WRFA and maybe listening as well on the Power Chord Hour podcast. How you doing out there? Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Anthony Merchant. And on this episode today, I am talking with Adam and Chris of Buffalo band The Eaves. The band just released their sophomore record. It is out now called Lately I Don't Have a God and Other Obvious Epiphanies. And we're going to talk new music with the band, discuss the new album, and introduce you all to The Eaves. Adam, Chris, how you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, that's a good intro. I'm gonna steal that.
Feel free. Take that if you'd like. But yeah, I mean, I guess to start off, I mean, for both of you, I know we have Adam and Chris, but you just want to tell us what both of you play in the band, what both of you do in The Eaves.
I'm a singer, and
I play guitar.
Nice.
so, yeah. And then you know, we all. I mean, Mo's not here. Mo is the other third, but you know, we all write together.
So I mean, again, I know I told you before, but I mean, congrats on the new record. I mean, it's only been out now. I mean, what, like 3 days? So I mean, it's pretty fresh as I'm talking to you. How does it feel to finally get it out into the world?
Great. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's countless of similar situations where there was work that was started, you know, pre-pandemic, and then, you know, of course, you know, it took a little bit to get it after all that happened to finish it up, and it actually shaped, you know, the whole thing is kind of weirdly contained in the record. Like the whole, you know, the first song was written in 2019. The last one was written January of this, yeah, or like, you know, last year, right before, you know, right as it was kind of, I mean, I guess pandemic's still kind of happening, but, you know, kind of towards the end of when it was raging.
Yeah, I mean, I was, because like I'm pretty new to the band. I mean, I just kind of discovered you guys like the last like maybe month or so. But like as I was looking back, I mean, I saw your debut came out like 2018, somewhere around there. So I mean, I guess that explains. Yeah, if you were writing the follow up pre-pandemic, I was wondering like in between then, had you been writing? But I guess that explains it. This album has been in the works for a while then.
Yeah. I mean, it was only really supposed to be we had 2 songs, and those, maybe we had two or three, but, you know, we started with those, and we tracked them. We maybe had 2.5 songs tracked. I remember one was partially done, but we had 2 completely mastered, you know, and it was really just supposed to be a 7-inch, supposed to have those 2, and then pandemic happened. We kind of had, you know, these 2 songs, and then we had a couple others we were working on, and then, you know, just kind of kept it rolling. And the next, you know, every time we'd have a chance to get in there, we'd lay a couple more down. Right. And, you know, sorry, I forgot the question.
No, I mean, kind of going with that too. I mean, throughout, had you been consistently working on it throughout, or I mean, were there times of like a couple months, you know, maybe you don't touch it or write anything, and then you get back to it? I mean, was it kind of that kind of process for this one?
Well, I mean, there was, I guess, initially, you know, when everybody else was kind of, you know, wondering what was going on, there was that initial period where you're just kind of like everyone else, just waiting to see what's happening when it was really new. But then I know, I mean, and you can chime in too. I mean, I know that, you know, Adam really had started ping-ponging some ideas, you know, just throwing some ideas out there over an app that allowed us to, you know, all kind of contribute our own stuff, and it would save, you know, it was like, you know, any of these things where it's a shared, you know, cloud kind of thing, and you can make edits to it. So, I mean, we had never done anything like that before. Like we were maybe old school to a fault, recording our demos on a Tascam, like actual unit. I don't know what they're actually called, but you know, just with how it went with the pandemic, it just was one of these things where it was convenience and very accessible, and, you know, it was all we could really do at the time. So,
and that's where kind of Craigie and It'll Be Okay kind of birthed from that different process.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, to your question of how long some of the stuff has been in the works, I mean, there's a song, you know, this Craigie verse, The Screw, versus the Screw on. It's I think the 4th song on the record. There's a part in there that goes all the way back to songs that we were working on for the first record, and it was something that didn't make its way into a song there, and that ended up being like sort of a jump off point with the overall vibe of the song here. So and it totally different usage and totally different context of how it was used. So I mean, you can't even plan for that. You know what I mean? It just kicks around, and some ideas will nag at you, and maybe there's times when it's you're really feeling particularly inspired. And that's the thing with the pandemic, is there was like a weird aspect of it where there wasn't I don't know, it was like, because everything stopped, it felt like some of the pressure in a certain aspect, it didn't feel as much like everybody was stopped. So it feels like, okay, no one's winning or losing right now. Like, now is your time to there's sort of that luxury of, you can go at your own pace, and you don't feel rushed in a sense that you're like lagging behind because of what somebody else is doing or anything like that. And then we all saw Bo Burnham, and we felt like shit about what we were doing.
No, I mean, I've talked to more than enough bands where, I mean, I feel like what is happening right now is, like, I don't know what year you guys started, but like a band who starts, I don't know, say 2017, 2018, they like put out a debut record, and they're just now, the sophomore record's only coming out like this year or maybe last year. I mean, really, it seems like that's the pretty common thing right now. So I mean, yeah, you are right. I mean, everyone's kind of in that same boat. Like no one I feel like is putting out a record every year in between. It's kind of like if you were working on something in like late 2019, early 2020, that thing didn't see the light of day for a while. That thing might just be coming out now.
Yeah, I mean, and if it even is, I mean, you can't even, how many, who knows how many bands, how many projects just got shelved and we're just never going to see them. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunate, but when there's that much time, it can happen. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're a younger band, like you're saying, some of these bands that just, had a debut that was, essentially right before the pandemic, trying to get a follow-up. It's a hard enough thing to make one record, right? And then, to keep it all through, keep it all going through, that kind of situation is not easy.
No, not at. Plus, I feel like maybe you guys are in the better boat too, because I also feel like there's that situation where the album came out again. I mean, I guess in the same spot, like late 2019, early 2020, and the band's kind of picking up momentum with it, and then it all kind of stops there, and then it's like you can't tour on it. I mean, I guess the album sits there, but like I feel like there were definitely bands kind of picking up that momentum, and it kind of goes away there. Where I don't know, I almost feel like you're better like this, like. The album's coming out now when you can play shows and things are kind of getting back to normal. It's like, I don't know, that's probably better than it, coming out a few years ago. And, maybe it did something for a couple months and then it got lost in everything else, and all the hecticness of the world, your album can be forgotten, sadly.
Sure. Don't worry, we can still make that happen.
It's not too late. I mean, how long has the band been together? I know I was about to ask you that. I mean, the debut, it looked like, again, came out like 2018, but how long has the Eaves been together?
Well, I mean, the Eaves really goes back to this band we were in before. And, that band had started in, like, really, the three of us, 2014. So, together, this sort of group writing, I mean, we go back, we went to high school together. So, we have known each other for a long time. And then, kind of never took a serious, like, writing and like in a band, like gave it a serious go. So when we kind of reconnected, that was in 2014. And then that group has really been working together since then. So, which I think is important to mention, because I at least personally, I mean, you want to at least in your own mind feel like you're progressing in what you're doing. So, and I feel like with how we write, the fact that we've been together this long, it is, a luxury ultimately, to sort of know like tendencies and have some of the same shared experiences and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of that, came together on this record, honestly. A lot that we had learned, it really felt like a culmination in a sense of, going all the way back to that, 2014 and really we just were saying like, hey, let's just get together at, it was their apartment on a Saturday. And it's just like, let's just write and see what happens. And, here we are, putting out record number 2. So,
going back to like that, like initial, like in 2014, kind of starting to write together and everything, like, would you say where you are now with the Eaves versus in that beginning, like, do you feel like you've progressed that sound from then? Or like if you went back and listened to the stuff from say in the beginning, it sounds almost like a totally different band in a totally different direction. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah. To me, it does.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, what's up?
Sorry, I want to say that we progressed while writing this album.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just like with everything that's going on and the length of time that it took. Like the first songs that we went to the studio with, they were us, but then as we were writing at home and we're all stuck at home and approaching everything a little differently, we progressed throughout that. But then put everything together and really came out with a cohesive piece.
Definitely. I mean, and it's weird because the band that we were in before was definitely more of like a gaslighty Americana, very Springsteen thing. And then when we became the Eaves and we put out the first record, it was much more sort of linear, like sort of like an updated Ramones kind of, at least the instrumentation. Obviously, I sound nothing like Joey Ramone, but and then this is sort of taking that, and it always seems to me, and it's weird because when you obviously have a different perspective when you're writing it versus when you're someone else who's listening to it and receiving it, but you always feel like you're putting sort of all your influences into something. So it is a little tough to sort of separate internal bias like that. But I would hope that sort of all that's apparent, and to Adam's point, that even when we wrote those first 2 songs coming off the heels of like a pretty linear, like more of a punker sound record, and so that's kind of apparent in some of the songs that are a little more like linear and faster. Maybe some of the tones are a little gnarlier, and then there's some songs that are a little more vibey and a little more like indie inspired. Yeah. And so that's sort of like another, in addition to the history that was already there, bringing that history forward and then taking another turn. So a really long-winded way of saying that it's sort of everything that we've done leading up to this point.
I mean, I like on because again, I mean, I am like new to the band, and I mean, I still need to go spend more time on like the debut and stuff. But like the new record, I mean, I do feel like you do hear different influences, and it's not a one-trick pony in that way where it's just this one sound the whole way through. Like they're definitely, the moods kind of change. Like this song feels this way, this song kind of feels this way. It all flows well together. But yeah, it's not like I don't know, every song is a fast 3-chord punk song or something, just straightforward through 11, 12 times, throughout the album. It's like it changes up. It's different.
Definitely. That it might have been a tweet, honestly. I think it was Jason Isbell who somebody said something about a 400 unit record, and he said something along the lines of, I like to think that we're whatever band the song needs us to be. And I think that's awesome. Like, and like, yeah. if you're an artist or a band or whatever, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself anyway. So it's like, I look at that as like a very calibrating state, like a sort of centering statement, where it's like, if you're worried about, if it sort of feels right to you, you have to trust your own intuition to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. And I like, that statement suggests that you should also be sort of open. It seems implied in the statement that you should be open to the moment that is, writing whatever song, is sort of happening. And that, is something that, and there's our personal development happening. There's our, sort of working together, chemistry development. And I think that was another one of those corners that, maybe we all kind of turned as a band while the pandemic was happening and while we were writing this record.
Yeah. And one other thing, like contrary to what we did on this album, the previous one, we pretty much reworked all the songs 2 weeks leading up to it. And we went into the studio and we recorded all of them at once. So definitely allowed a little bit more variety in this second album, and also songwriting wise and tonally, right? Because we're going in, we do 2 or 3 songs at a time.
A much different experience from the first record. The first record, like Adam's saying, we did that in 11 or 12 days, all in a row. And it was all like, okay, we're going for this kind of thing, this sound, and this one, and how we did, just the way everything played out and how this record was recorded. Like Adam's saying, it allowed for, first of all, because we weren't doing it, 11 days in a row, it wasn't stressful in that sort of frantic sense of like at every moment we have to be doing something. It was like, all right, well, you know what, if this is just going to take as long as it takes, kind of thing. And especially during the pandemic, it was like, well, what's the rush? We can't play a show. We'll just, get it to sound the way we want it, and go from there. And I, not to, quote another much better artist, but that was something that I read. Adam Grandacil from the War on Drugs. I'm not sure how you say his last name, but from the War on Drugs, when he was talking about their most recent record. And that was another thing that they did, where he allowed, at least I think, somebody might want to go fact check it. Maybe go Google the article after, but that he allowed, he would sort of send the tracks off and allow people, because he has all these great artists play on there. So he'll allow them to have the time with it. And I think that was another thing that was sort of setting in for me, in contrast to how we did that first record. And it's all about how, what you think will work better for you. If you like sort of very strict deadline and like a very rigid and that sort of get it all in one shot approach, maybe that's for you. And, maybe you just want a different approach at a different time. So this approach of sort of working at our own pace was I think a much more, it was what we needed at this time. So, it was
for these songs.
Right. And I think that's like what you're hearing, where there's a lot more moods. There's different moods on there. And some of that's intentional. Like It'll Be Okay was one that was, okay, we need like an actual, like not an undeniable, but like sort of a for sure positive note, where it is like a lighter note, because some of the songs, just felt like a little desperate, and sort of like not, it was like you would get done listening to, a group of them without It'll Be Okay. And it would be, they're all kind of like, are you okay, man? Like, that kind of thing. So it was like, we'll write a song called It'll Be Okay.
Not to mention, we thought the album was done before that song.
Yeah.
Before we came across that,
Yeah.
Was that the last one written then for the album?
Yeah. And that's the one that one of the super crazy opportunities that we had that came about with this record was this chance to work with Kyle Resnick, who's he's a touring, he plays trumpet and all their horns for the National.
Nice.
And he's got a crazy resume. And I remember finding out about the National in college, and it was a really surreal moment working with him and hearing the horns that you heard on Boxer and High Vibe. It's just really crazy. So the fact that that's on our record is what can you say to that? It's great. It's their second record and no one knows who we are. So it's pretty cool that he's on there.
That is very sick. That is really cool.
Yeah, he lives in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. I was thinking about it though too. Like the one thing I was wondering, because I feel like this could be like the one pitfall of like having the time to like release a new album and everything, and taking time to record it and write it. Did you find yourself overthinking songs too much, or going back and going, no, it should be? You know what I mean? Like is that the one thing of having that time? Did you find yourself maybe having too much time to think about some songs, or go, oh no, it should be this way, or no, I want to do it this way? Because you have time to do that and you have time to overanalyze things. Did that happen at all for you?
I mean, I don't want to speak for Adam, but for me, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, here's another long-winded answer coming. I mean, it just for me, it wasn't when something felt right, it felt right, and I just kind of left it. And sometimes it was an early try. Sometimes like that song that was originally a part from the first record that ended up being here, like that song changed. That song changed completely over pandemic. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was pretty much a different idea. And then it sort of evolved into what it is on the record. So, for me, it wasn't that too much time was necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. I think working with Jay and having him, do the mixing, like if we were in the room when we were doing the mixing, I'm sure we would drive him crazy, because we'd be like, tweak this, tweak that, tweak this, tweak that. But he, like, working with him, and we've had a history with him at GCR, and being able to communicate when we say, hey, what if we tried, this approach, that he knew what we were talking about, and we didn't have to have quite that back and forth, like you mentioned.
That's a shame on me for not mentioning, but he just as important, like going all the way back to, 2014, Jay's been there too. So, we've been working, Jay Zubricky at GCR Audio, we've been working with for, 8 years at this point. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, like Adam's saying, like you just get to working with somebody for, a long enough time. And I mean, Jay is such a easy to get along with person. So, having the opportunity to work with him for as long as we have has been awesome. And it's another one of those things where when you have that same group, you can work on shorthand.
Right. Good way to say it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I mean, like, it like you guys, it seems like, I mean, you brought it up, but like kind of it's like the payoff of the accumulation of like, you've been working so long and writing together for so long now, even though it's only the sophomore record. I mean, in a lot of ways you look at it like, like a pretty new band, but I mean, in reality, I mean, you've been working on this a while and working together. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one of those things you only get that like tightness or being able to kind of understand each other musically over time. I mean, you can't just get that off some guy walking off, out of the street and like playing with you, and all of a sudden, I mean, maybe sometimes that happens and you just click right away, but like a lot of that seems like it takes time. That doesn't happen overnight. Like I'm sure where you're at now versus when you started, like even just communicating with each other on how to write or how you write together or figuring out what each other kind of likes. Like I'm sure it's very different from the beginning to now,
Definitely. I mean, weirdly, that is something like, because, when we were in high school, we had similar interests, and then all three of us, the interests sort of evolved similarly. Like, it's not like, so, there's always been sort of a pretty strong overlap in the Venn diagram. So there is this like, a fair amount of common ground, but enough sort of people going in their own direction that there's, a variable in there, or a few variables in there too. So yeah, I mean, I think it's those they did evolve, but ultimately because we've all been together, it sort of evolved together also. I guess is the point I was trying to make.
For for like playing shows and stuff, I mean, did the band just from the get-go, were you guys playing shows? I mean, did you get, I know I'm sure things slowed down in the pandemic, but like pre-pandemic, were you out playing a lot in the Buffalo area?
Yeah. We had Yeah, we would play pretty regularly in Buffalo. We don't really go too far outside of Buffalo, but
down to Fredonia a couple times.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, we would the local clubs, and then we would try and at local theaters try and get on a tour, local support for a touring headliner kind of thing. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much our bread and butter is club shows.
Playing the club shows.
Yeah.
Has there been, I mean, again, this album just came out, but I mean, has there been a record release show or any plans for a record release show?
We're working on that right now. Should have some announcements coming soon. But I just can't release anything just yet. So I'm still trying to finalize some things. So
has
yes, there will be at some point in the new year. In the new year.
Yeah, it's not really that far away at this point.
It's on December 25th. We need everyone to come out.
Have you had a chance to play any of the songs off the new record live? Have you had any chances to play any of these yet?
There were a couple that existed. We were just talking about it. I think we played one show in 2020, and it was a Valentine's Day show. And then I think it was like less than a month, maybe 3 weeks later, everything shut down.
Oh,
no, because it was February.
It was a month.
But
Untethered
so I mean, Not in Love was one of the first ones that we wrote, coming off the heels of that last record. So that one was out there. Untethered was out there, and then there was maybe Idle Hands. So a few of them we played live, but really like some of the ones that we really felt like we developed on. There's still a bunch of songs out there that we on the record that we haven't had a chance to play live yet. That definitely. Champing at the bit. I don't know. I heard somebody say champing. I don't know which one it is. But, yeah, no, but we definitely can't wait to as soon as we can get those ducks lined up, gonna do it for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. I mean, are there any? I guess putting you on the spot, like any off the top of your head where you go, damn, that'd be a good like live song. Like, are there any on the record that pop in your head where you go, that one should translate well live? Like that's a live staple.
Huh. I don't know.
When
throwing you on the spot here.
I mean, my approach to writing songs is definitely like, is this going to be fun to play live? So I would hope that they all are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we only have 9, so they all have to be staples.
We hope all of these are good live. We hope this works.
We can't afford to remove any from the set, so
we didn't really put
it regardless,
like a ballady slow song on this record. So
yeah, I would say
they should all be.
I would say the slow song in place of the ballady song is Craigie.
Yeah, but that picks up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure with the three of you in the band, I mean, influences vary and everything, but I mean, what are some commonalities? What are like a few musical influences that like you can all three of you could probably agree on, or like you're all good on that. You could probably all say, okay, yes, that's an influence. That's something we can all derive from, if you will.
Well, I mean, despite our sort of claim that we've evolved from the Americana thing, I mean, there's Tom Petty is like, just like, I mean, we all of course like the songs and the music and that, but like even on another level, like as far as the type of songs that we're writing, like these sort of like tighter sort of like pop structure, like very like nothing too crazy. I mean, Petty, Springsteen, Warren Zevon is another one that would be there. I mean, we like a lot of. I'm trying to think of other like shared. I mean, the Ramones. I mean, some of the the Givens. Is there anything that jumps to mind for you that's not?
As like the cornerstones, I think that hits it. But I mean, there's more modern stuff too.
Yeah.
The Killers and
Yeah, definitely. REM, Replacements.
Yeah. War on Drugs.
Yeah, War on Drugs for sure. The National. Yeah. Gaslight's another one. There's, like I said, the overlap in the Venn diagram is pretty good. But then, I mean, I will say, like, for me, because I know, like, you had some, like, because then we each had, like, our kind of own, especially, like, on this one, or, like, on, like, while we were making or writing these songs. And I know, like, do you have anybody you wanted to, like, sort of, like, mention that you were listening to or anything like that, inspired by?
During COVID specifically, I did a pretty deep dive on Phoebe Bridgers.
Yeah.
Nonstop, both albums. And on our other side projects. But in addition, I've always loved like folk music, James Taylor, Bob Dylan, Simon Garfunkel. I don't think that's. I mean, you guys probably like that music.
But I hate folk music.
Yeah, okay. The Byrds. I mean, that's kind of petty-ish vibe too. But like, yeah, I always liked playing that music. And I would always learn it and try to play it as fast as I could. So I kind of brought that into this music.
Yeah, marries well with the Ramones and the Clash. So,
I mean, I feel like you're kind of talking about it there, but like I was going to ask too, like in that, like influences either of you have, and yeah, I mean they don't have to be mutual or anything like that, but like influences that you definitely think are in your music, but people may not hear right away. Where like, you know, because like some of those you're saying, like you can definitely hear some Springsteen and Gaslight and Replacements and stuff like that. But are there any that you feel like are probably in, or you know are in there? I mean, hell, you're the one writing the songs, but like, you know, may not be the obvious front and center.
I mean, if we got into like lyrics, like I have lyrics just from like all over the place. Like I really think like the first like, and this is like when you write it, it means a whole different thing to you than it does to anybody. But like for Craigie lyrically, I feel like it's almost like the beginning of it lyrically is almost like a monologue, like a Rod Serling monologue from Twilight Zone. Like it's like, it feels like, and I probably was watching it at one point. You know, so that like, and that was something that I kind of, that occurred to me over pandemic, is sort of like just pulling inspiration from anywhere. So like, you know, very rarely would I have lyrics that were just like, I'm going to just try and write lyrics right now. It would be like, I would be doing something and something would stick out. Like maybe it's something from a conversation. Maybe I am listening to something else and maybe it's music and I'm inspired by that. But, you know, really just trying to identify it whenever you sort of see something that you think is interesting, and then just kind of set it aside. You know, I mean, you know, that like hour, you know, right before, like right as you're falling asleep, like when your brain starts going nuts, I just like committed to be like, all right, I'll sacrifice the sleep. I'm just gonna jot it down. If it's nonsense in the morning, it's nonsense, and if it's something good, it's something good. And I definitely had a bunch of ideas that sort of came, you know, that way. So yeah, again, I don't even remember what the question was. I apologize.
No, I like it. I mean, it's also kind of bringing me to other things, because like along with that, I mean, for like both of you, I mean, do you both kind of have a conventional way, or like the average way that you write a song, or does it differ from what you're writing? Or I mean, is it pretty much, you know, 9 times out of 10 you start on an acoustic, then there's, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like there's a formula to your writing, or I mean, does it change up all the time?
So we do collaborate.
Yeah.
Somebody's bringing the first idea to the table, whether it's a feel, a chord progression, a vocal melody, or, you know, whatever that initial spark is, and then it branches out from there.
But I mean, I would say there's a vague, you know, formula in that sense, where it is so like that's just sort of how the chemistry works. Like there will be a lot of times it is, you know, an acoustic, maybe like a progression or something like that, and then I mean, you know, when it was pandemic, that would just be on an app, and then you would record it, you listen to it, you see if you have any ideas for it. But ideally, the way we did it before the pandemic, is when, we would have that idea and then that gets kicked around the room. And that to me was always like a super exciting and fun thing, because and something that you have to learn to like kind of set your ego aside for, and sort of trust the people you're working with.
Because you could have something and you could see it going in one direction, and then somebody says, well, hey, what if we slow this down? And I think that's kind of what happened with Greggy, right?
I mean, it all like the just something like that where you just sort of completely flip the script is I don't know. Sometimes that we had a song on the first record, but that kind of happened. But even there's examples on this one where I keep going back to Craigie, but I mean, I do love that song. But and that one, it is weird to me, like knowing that part was from way back, and it was like, how did that, like it's so like unassuming,
of course,
like to where it ended up. That just for us knowing sort of how it was written, it's like that's so weird. Like how did that end up in that song sounding like that? It's just don't throw anything out.
Well, kind of off that, I mean, like you're talking about like how things off the first album kind of ideas and how you brought them over. I mean, I was also wondering earlier too, like, I mean, was there any initial ideas you had for like the band prior to the Eaves, like the stuff you guys were working on before you started doing the Eaves, that ended up coming into the Eaves early on? I mean, was like some of that early material stuff that was left over?
Well, weirdly enough, we do have a song that was one of the ones that was one of the way back in 2014 under a different name. We recorded 4 songs on an EP. It was locally released, as are all of our records. And they one of the songs on there was this song called Saint, and the production was different. Like basically, we were a different band at that time, so we basically took that. We have a song cleverly titled Saint Redux on the new record, but it is for want of a better term, it's an updated version of that. So I think I mean, I don't even know if the old one is still out there, but production wise, we went with a more linear production. We changed some of the structured things.
Harmonica solo.
But and it's ironic because really, if you really wanted to see a good like sort of A/B comparison of what used to be and what is, would be that song. But I don't think that's out anywhere. So, all for naught. So there is very much so old ideas that are on all over this one, to be honest with you.
Initially that was kind of like a Fleetwood Mac kind of style song, and now it's we went more in an REM direction, I think, is to put it as plainly as possible.
Yeah.
I like to ask this of bands who just released a new album, but was there any, maybe not even a whole part of it, or maybe not the entire song, but even just a part of a song or something that was just a total pain in the ass to get down in studio? Like for one reason or another, it was just not coming out the way it was supposed to be in your head or whatever, that just, it took a minute to get it down. It was not a first take kind of deal.
And I only one take, so Adam.
I don't know. Is there something specific that you're thinking of?
No. I saw a bus and I had to throw him under it.
Jay probably has a good understanding of that because he tries to make everything sound good for us.
Jay's the one with the jar of Vaseline, throwing it all over the camera lens. So he would probably know better. But I mean, anything that there were, at least there were a couple, I think Idle Hands, and that was enough. So, to talk out of both sides of my mouth, Idle Hands was one that was half recorded vocally going into the pandemic, and, sitting with that vocal, the vocals that were from that session was just like, no, these need to be redone. So did go back in there and redo that. But I mean, that, outside that, I don't know if there was anything that really like drove us crazy.
I remember keep talk about Craigie. The pre-chorus, I remember having a couple headaches about that, but that was, I mean, we worked it out.
Nothing. I mean, there really wasn't, in comparison to some of the stuff that we had worked on before, where we had, and maybe this was like a sort of a conscious change. But we used to like really drill things, especially like when we were all in the room, playing. We would be, the band that would play the ending 50 times, with very slight differences or whatever it is, and it was almost like we just went with, if it felt good, we went with it, and we didn't want to succumb to that kind of thing.
Well, one other thing is, so on the first record, we went in and we recorded all the songs. And when we were done recording, we were done recording.
Right.
Whereas there were a couple times when we went back in the studio on this record where, let's add a vocal here on one we already did, or add a guitar part. So we did kind of get a chance to revisit them after. I don't remember specifically which songs, but.
No, but I mean, that was, that, it sounds so simple, but like having the opportunity to go back, it's like, because there's no worse feeling than when it's all sent away and it's not, there's something you want to change on it. So, being able to just be like, oh yeah, well, I mean, we're also spoiled because we live 10 minutes from the studio. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we can fix this very easily. Like, so there isn't that sort of, dread of, oh my God, it's, mastered and there's this thing on there that I can't stand, kind of thing. So yeah, definitely
mispronounce the word.
Yeah. So
it seems like the recording process. It seems like this album, like pretty good recording process. I mean, I'm sure you wanted it out at times, but like again, it doesn't. I've heard much worse recording experiences. This doesn't seem like this was that bad a one.
Yeah, we could. This one
After
wasn't
the first record. We wanted to go try something different.
Yeah, it was. That first record was a very much like a stress test. So that
we learned a lot.
Learned a ton, and so that's, I think, like informed a lot of like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do this the same? What are we gonna do differently? What are we retaining from this? What are we throwing aside, kind of thing, and. Yeah, I mean, I think especially coming off of a scenario where it did very much feel like you were, cranked up to 11 for, days on end, which I know some bands go really crazy if they have. We only have the budget to go crazy for 11 days. But coming from sort of a super stressful situation, I think we were all just like, yeah, why? Like, let's not do that to ourselves. Let's, just sort of make this. Not that it wasn't fun before, but like, let's have fun while we're doing this. Obviously that you can do that to a fault, but if you can have fun and stay on task, that's really the way to do it. So there really wasn't a moment where, the sky was falling on this one. Where, don't get me wrong, we've had plenty of those before, but no, it really wasn't. Anything like that on this one. So yeah, it was a more streamlined and I keep coming back to like much less stressful and fun.
That's a good thing. That's not bad at all. Less stressful and fun seems like what you would like in a recording experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you set out and you have like that idea of it, and but you're working. Everybody really cares about what they're doing, so it can get like. Luckily, another benefit of having worked together for as long as we have is we've been through those situations where, all right, well, remember that day when we all spiraled and got nothing done? It's like, let's not do that again. So, you just learn to, try and avoid it in a positive sense.
Nice. I mean, just a couple more for you guys, but I always like to talk to Buffalo bands. I'm down here in Jamestown, so not far. I tend to come up to Buffalo I did see your shirt. I come to Buffalo a decent amount for shows. And I mean, I know we were like talking about the pandemic and stuff because it's interesting because like I left the area for a while and then came back right around the time the pandemic started. And like now I'm kind of slowly getting back to getting up to shows and stuff in Buffalo and really getting back to kind of knowing the local scene a little more. But like, what are your favorite venues in Buffalo? Like, what are some of your favorite places to play? Like, for me, myself, I'm interested in this because I also don't feel like I'm as privy now to the venues up in Buffalo and stuff as I used to be. So educate us. What are some of the good venues up there? I mean, I know you have some good ones in the area.
Well, I mean, there's the two club staples that, you know, go back, I don't even know how long, but Mohawk Place and Nietzsche's, of course. And then, I mean, you know, the times that we're lucky enough to play, you know, open for a place at like Town Ballroom, you know, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
If you find yourself being able to open locally, I suggest doing it at Town Ballroom. It's, I mean, you feel, you know, for us who are used to, you know, we're used to playing Mohawk and Nietzsche's and that kind of thing. You know, getting to play theater or, you know, that kind of thing is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely have appreciation for ballroom. Mohawk is just, you just can't.
Yeah. One of the newer ones that's getting, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Newer ones that's been doing a lot of cool shows is Rec Room. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Rec Room.
I don't know when they opened.
Yeah, maybe they were open before
COVID.
before
like
COVID.
2 or 3 years before. And Riverworks, that's the biggest venue probably in Buffalo, without going arena size, but that's newer.
Ninth Ward's cool. Never played it, but it's very,
Oh, yeah.
very cool. And there's Berry Hall. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, there's tons of venues. I mean, a lot of them won't have us.
Really is. I mean, kind of going, I mean, with venues, but also like local music scene, like up in that area. I mean, does everything kind of end up congregating into the city and into Buffalo? I mean, do those suburbs and small towns, there's so many that surround Buffalo. I mean, are there little music scenes and pockets going around, or does basically all kind of local music all kind of come within the city? You know, is everyone kind of going to the city for it, and you're finding less in the suburbs and stuff like that?
I mean,
The majority, probably,
say what?
would be in the city.
Oh, I mean, if you're trying to go and see, yeah, I mean, I don't even know.
Well, there's stuff in Niagara Falls, I suppose, and there used to be what was the venue that was in Amherst? Club Infinity.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that place. God, I haven't thought of that in forever. I remember that place.
Well, that was it was stage one also, and then I don't know. It did reopen at one point as under a different name, and then I don't know. I haven't heard since the pandemic if it made it through or not. But I mean, as far as the scene as a whole, I mean, there's always been like a good like hardcore scene and like pop punk scene, I'd say. But I mean, outside that, it's pretty fractured, which I think is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's a wide. You can hear a lot of different good music from the area for sure. But you know, yeah, I would say definitely a lot of it's coming from the city. Yeah, I don't know, the suburbs. Nothing comes to mind when you say suburbs and here.
Yeah.
So,
no, there's a lot of, I mean, even within the city, I mean, there's definitely some solid local bands and stuff. Again, like I'm trying to like re-educate myself on some of it, but everything coming out of that area seems to be good, including the Eaves now. You know, everything seems to be going pretty good. But I mean, on top of that, I mean, we're talking to no future plans for a album release show and stuff, but anything else like on the horizons people should keep an eye out for? Anything? I mean, obviously the new record, that's the biggest, but anything else the band's doing that we should like keep an eye out for in the near future?
Well, I guess the first thing, like you said, if you made it this far in the podcast and you haven't listened to our album,
yeah,
go check it out.
Yeah, please, and tell a friend.
We got 2 videos out.
Yeah. If you like it, or if you know someone who you think might like it, tell them. Do us a favor and do that. But yeah, I mean, as far as nothing major. Just follow the socials, and we'll have a show or some announcements rather coming up soon, and then hopefully some more videos and stuff coming along as well. And yeah, just trying to spent as long promoting it as we did making it. So.
It's worth promoting. I mean, it is a really great record. I mean, I and the production sounds great. I mean, the album, you would think you had this, like, I mean, it sounds like a huge budget. It sounds really well produced. Sonically sounds great. Like, the whole thing, I think, came out really good. So well worth people's time. And I mean, anything else? I mean, as we close out, is there anything that we haven't touched on, or anything else we should get into before we close this out?
I mean, real quick, just because it reminded me, but I just had to shout out again. You know, you comment on the production. I mean, that's Jay Zubricky all the way. And then Stu McKillop at Rain City Mastering. I always screw up the name, so hopefully I got it right. But I mean, when it was mastered, it was like, holy shit! Like, we really loved what he did. But, you know, because we were worried, you know, these were songs that were recorded over, you know, a bunch of different snares, guitars, pedals, all kinds. Like, this could have sounded like a quilt, and it doesn't. It like, you know, it sounds cohesive. So, you know, I think a lot of that credit is due to Jay, and then you know, Jay also got Stu on board, and, you know, said, like, hey, you know, here's what we got, you know. What can we do here? And he absolutely crushed it, I think. I mean, really, once when we heard those masters, we were floored. So yeah, the production is all Jay Zubricky, and then, you know, Stu McKillop mastering it at Rain City mastering. And then as far as anything else I could ramble on about.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, we did work with Robby, Takac on a couple of the songs. Nice. I don't know if he came up. Oh yeah, that Goo Goo Doll.
That guy, yeah. Little band called the Goo Goo Dolls. Yeah, nice. That's pretty rad.
I mean, there is. I mean,
there's a local band.
Yeah, local band. They're hacking it out down there. They're probably playing Mohawk tonight. 5 or 6
they
people.
Probably wish.
But no, I mean, and it's funny because I actually watched one of their some old, like, it was a VH1 storytellers of, like, Goo Goo Dolls when they were at their, like, commercial peak, like, you know, the heyday. And it was somebody on there said Robby. It was like a little bumper, like right before a commercial, and it was like they said they gave the mic to the audience, and they're like, Robby Takac is the best kept secret in the music business. And his perfect response was, let's keep it that way. So, like, but like, that's a great example of who Robby is and who he is. Like, he is the best kept secret in the music industry, and he's the salt of the earth, like, nicest person you'll meet. So the dude's got no ego on him. He's the best. You know, we've been super lucky to work with a lot of, you know, people who have these local ties. So, you know, it's awesome, you know, being able to work with Robby and Kyle and you know, Jay. I don't take, you know, Jay for granted. You know, that he's building up he's got a pretty impressive resume. If you want to go check out, you know, stuff that he's worked on, it's pretty nuts. So yeah, I'm just I don't want to forget anybody. Just trying to remember. No, I think that's about it. Unless there's anything else you can think of. Yeah. Thanks for having us. No,
of course. People listening, if you're listening on the podcast, we'll play you a song or two, but the radio show is 4 hours, so we'll play we can play the whole record. So, I mean, if you're listening to the radio show, we'll play you the whole. We've been talking about it, and you can actually hear what we've been speaking about for the last hour. Now you can hear these songs. So whichever one you're listening to, we'll start off with track 1 off Lately, I Don't Have a God, and Other Obvious Epiphanies. And we'll start it with the album opener. This is Not in Love, right here on the Power Chord Hour.